Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle Postgame show, Postgame Live. I'm Mark Givler, joined by Devin Radcliffe. Ohio State rolls. It was a pretty non-competitive game for large stretches, but it had some interesting moments early and it had some interesting moments late. Let's not bury the lead here. That Greg Schiano Ryan Day confrontation, Ohio State, we can call it a fake punt. Was it called as a fake from the sideline? I doubt it. I think it was more of a look that was given, but in a maybe an instinctual reaction from Jesse Mirco. But Devin, your thoughts on what we saw there at the end as the Buckeyes blew out Rutgers and then added a little salt into the wound there at the end?
So I definitely could see when you look at it, especially watching the replays of it, you could see why they ran the fake. Rutgers had a block on. The leverage was there for the fake, and the punter took it and got it, clean. So it's obviously something it's scouted and prepared for. And I'll take both sides of the coin here, I guess. Conversely, I could see where, if it's a 7-point game, yeah, go. You got to go. You got to get that. However, when you're up, what was it, 39 when it happened, 40, maybe you're going on in the field going, hey, by the way, special teams guy down there goes, just kick it away. We're up 39 with 5 minutes left or whatever the time was in the game. Let's save that for another day. So I can see both sides of the coin. Obviously, the late hit out of bounds was pretty bad. You got a chance to pull up. You don't need to take that shot. I don't know what the rule is, so I don't know if that player's going to get suspended next week. And then obviously we saw the fireworks afterwards. So I could see both sides of it. I could see why you take it because it's there. I'm sure they drilled it all week. So they went out there, saw it, called it, executed it. Conversely, I could see why Rutgers was upset and Coach Schiano was upset that you're up 39. What are we doing here? There's no reason to pile it on. The game up to that point had been relatively pretty clean game. So it wasn't like it was a, hey, I've got to prove a point here game. It was like you're up 39. So I could see both sides of the coin.
I'll defend this all day. I just, I kind of wrote my instant observations are up on the website at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Just the way I look at it is, one, if you're in safe punt return there, we're not having this conversation right now. If you want mercy, if you want the game to end, if you just want to get to those final few minutes off the clock, then why are you not in safe punt return? Why are you trying to block the punt? What if they try and block the punt? What if they get there, block the punt, and Jesse Mirco gets injured?
That's a great point.
We're having a very different conversation right now.
Yeah, it's a great point. Kind of like if you don't want your quarterback to get hit with 3 minutes left, why are you throwing the ball? It's the same principle. You got a great point.
And I'll also say this: has any Big Ten program the last 3 or 4 years thrown more at Ohio State in terms of trick plays and just throwing the kitchen sink than Rutgers? And so, is turnabout fair play here?
Yeah, that is another great point. I mean, what you saw today, they had how many quarterbacks they throw in there? 5, and
four. I think it was 4.
Yeah, I think it was 4 or 5 guys they had back there. They're trying everything they could to try and get something to hit against Ohio State. And I remember back, what was it, the 2020 game where Rutgers just wouldn't go away and they kept staying alive. I think they had a fake punt in that game they hit, if I recall correctly. Yep. So you're exactly right. Under Greg Schiano, they are going to throw everything they can at Ohio State to try and get something to hit and to hang around. So there could be some of that aspect of, okay, all right, we're tired of your fakes. Here's one of our own. So I could, like I mentioned, I could see both sides of it from both coaches' perspectives.
And just my final thing, and then we'll get to some of the other stuff here. But I think that's it's kind of maybe sounds mean spirited, I guess. I don't know, but that's a good time to try and execute something like that. You're up 40 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, I think if you're watching Jesse Mirco out there, I think that's a good time to let your instincts take over, and there's not so much risk involved at that point in the game. And now you've got something on tape of like, hey, our punter can move a little bit. You overload a side like that, you better be prepared for the consequences. I don't think that's a bad thing to put on tape. Even if some people might think it's unsportsmanlike, but Yeah, interesting. I do, Devin, you made some good points there on the Rutgers end. I do see that too. And so it's an interesting discussion. I'm sure it'll be something people will be talking about on our board and everything else here the next day or two, but let's that was kind of the fireworks there at the end, but let's before we get to the coaches post-game interviews, let's talk about Mayan Williams. 5 touchdowns, ties a school record. I think was it Pete Johnson and Keith Byers, I think were the other two. So those are 2 all-time Buckeye greats. Mayan Williams now joins those ranks. What can you say about him today? I mean, just excellent running. Devin, you're just watching Mayan today. What did you think?
Yeah, he had 5 touchdowns. I mean, it's obviously up there, one of the better performances in Ohio State history now. Names in the record books, number 1, tied for number 1 list. I personally, I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of people, would have loved to seen him get number 6 and set the record today. And, bigger picture, what I really like to see is, all the talk last week was obviously about CJ Stroud and the incredible performance he had. Today wasn't his best day. He still had a good day, but he, dare I say, almost looked like he was a normal human being this week. So it was nice to see Ohio State, kind of like going back to Notre Dame, be able to come back and lean back on the run game. Of course, Williams got hot. I mean, he was just seeing it. Obviously, he was just seeing it. He was hitting it hard, running hard. He's developed it. He's had a cut in there. Dare I say, reminded me of J.K. Dobbins, where he made a guy miss on a cut in the open field. So incredible performance.
Another guy, Mayan was kind of in this category in the offseason, but another guy who was in this category in a bigger way, I think, was Julian Fleming. When are they going to go to the portal? Mm-hmm. And now Fleming has another touchdown today. I think was their leading receiver. I have to go back and check that, but I think he was at least well into the game was their leading receiver. What do you say about Julian? I guess we're in the transfer portal era. I'm sure a lot of people were in his ear this spring, like, hey, you could go be the man at this school or that school. And he's talked about how he improved. Obviously he has to get healthy. That was the biggest part, but he's talked about improving his work ethic and things like that. Are you surprised, I guess, by this? Just kind of what we've seen about guys just hitting the transfer portal as soon as it's convenient, and you get a guy like Fleming coming back, and he's really having a great season right now in a spot where they need another receiver to step up.
Well, I will have to say this, when you look at, I'll take a step back and say, when you're a wide receiver at Ohio State, and Brian Hartline, his track record right now, and you look at the guys he's got in the NFL, it's got to be a really tough decision to say, why would I want to leave this room? Because Hartline's demonstrated that, hey, if I produce here, I'm going to get picked. I'm going to get picked in the league, and I'm going to get picked high in the league. And so I could see why Fleming may not want to have been as excited to get in the portal, because where exactly is he going to go to get the pedigree he's getting from and coaching he's getting from Coach Hartline? I mean, obviously you talked to Williamson at Alabama, of course, and there's been some success stories there, and he was picked high again as well. So obviously I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but with the room Hartline's built and the reputation he's built, it's got to make it hard on a wide receiver to say, hey, I want to leave this place.
How much we appreciate the support from everybody. This is our 5th straight game, over 100,000 in attendance, and we feel it, and it means a lot to us, and we certainly want to put on a good show for everybody, and then also all the people that make this work, to put on a game. There's just so many people that have to do their parts, from ticketing to marketing to the operations to on the field to maintenance to facilities to the audio and video. I mean, there's just so many people, and certainly it all starts with our athletic director, Gene Smith. But just wanted to say thank you for that. It's been a good 5-week run here, and now we go on the road next week. But really want to say thank you to everybody involved.
We'll open up the questions. Front row right. Tim May on 3.
Yeah, there we go. I got to ask Ryan, 49-10 win, but most people, Twitter's a buzz about what happened between you and Greg Schiano there after Jesse Mirko took off on that punt. And
sure. Just
what's your take on that and what you guys say to each other?
I figured that'd be your first question.
Yeah. Well, I may not get another one.
Nah.
I was going to ask about Mayan Williams.
No, they
asked that too.
Yeah, they came after the punt, and Jesse rolled out to the right, and nothing we had ever worked on. He just saw it and took it. Was just a football player, and then took that shot on the sideline, and things got heated. And just, one coach defending their side, one coach defending theirs. No hard feelings at all. Told him that after the game, and have an unbelievable amount of respect for him. So that's all that was.
Over to the left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, CJ's talked at length about you preaching to him, taking the easy stuff, not getting bored with the routine stuff. His interception today, is that why you preach that so much?
Well, I mean, clear, it was, you could see they had a really good game plan coming in. They were going to, huddle, wait in the huddle, snap it at 10 seconds and try to eat as much clock off the game clock as possible and try to win the game of possession. And then on defense, you could see they were playing a lot of 2 high safeties really deep and forcing us to run the ball, which we ultimately had to do. And we came out with a shot coming out in the first play of the second half. And, we missed it, but there was a lot of really good throwaways that weren't there today by CJ, and he made some really good throws as well. So that's part of competing. That's part of it. But those are the types of games that, sometimes we're going to have to play. And overall, I thought it was a job well done.
Over to the right, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Can you just update the situation with Trevion? Was that related to what kept him out of the Toledo game a couple weeks ago, or I guess knocked him out of that game? And go ahead.
Yeah, we certainly didn't expect that to happen going in, but then just struggled in warmups. So we were expecting him to play, practice this week, and so it showed up and kind of did linger from last week. But we were kind of surprised he wasn't able to make it, and so we had to go with Mayan.
And I guess just the extension of that, seeing Mayan step up and be a bell cow, sort of, instead of just the role sharing he's been doing.
Yeah, I mean, 23 carries. Or 21 carries, 191 yards, 5 touchdowns, and the big one for 70 yards. It says a lot about the way he was running, especially in the red zone. I think our red zone numbers right now are really good, and it's a big part of it is the offensive line and the way we're running the football. But I just think overall the tight ends, the wide receivers, everybody's involved with this run game. But Mayan was running hard today and finished a bunch of runs in positive. He turns a 3-yard run into 5, keeps us on schedule, and and it was tough down there in the red zone. I mean, they kind of dug in a few times. We had to go for it on the 4th down, and but Mayan had a really good day for us.
Over to the left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Hey, Ryan, Tommy and Steele both had big games today. Just how much better are those guys playing than they were a year ago? What are the biggest ways in which you've seen those guys improve? Yeah,
I think they're just playing faster. They're diagnosing plays faster. They understand how teams are trying to attack them. And I think I mentioned this before. I think it's twofold. One is a year under your belt of playing and figuring out how teams are attacking you and in-game adjustments and just seeing things over and over and over again. And you think about some of the best linebackers that we've had here in the last, few years. It's usually guys who have played and seen things. You can flash when you're athletic, but it's the diagnosing of plays and understand how teams are trying to really come after you. But then also I think they feel comfortable in the scheme. I think they really have a good relationship with Jim Knowles, who they meet with every day. He's their position coach. And so he gives them really good perspective on how he fits into the run, but also in the pass game. And that's huge. And you can just see it. I think they're playing that way. You can just kind of feel it when you're on the sideline. I'm sure that, from your point of view, you see the same thing.
Over to the right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, just a couple other personnel matters. Tanner McAllister came out of the game in the second quarter. Just what's his status and as far as Cam Brown too?
Yeah, I don't really have much of an update right now on Tanner. We'll kind of evaluate him later today and tomorrow and kind of see where that's at. And then Cam, we're trying to get back as soon as we can. Again, we kind of come in tomorrow and see where things are at and hopefully get a week of practice out of those guys. But again, we're going to always, make sure that we're following the lead of the doctors and the medical staff on the whole thing. And certainly the feedback of the players is critically important in all of this. So, at the end of the day, I'm kind of out of it. I trust the guys and they do a great job.
Second row left, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, it seemed like that defensive front, the linebackers and the defensive line really set the tone for you guys today, whether kind of swallowing things up in the run game, getting after Simon a little bit. Just kind of how important were they how important were they today and kind of set the tone for you guys? Yeah,
I mean, it's anytime you're trying to stop the run and play great defense, you have to win the line of scrimmage, and that's a big part of it. You could see that they were disruptive just watching the play. You could see the line of scrimmage was getting moved back a bunch. But they did some good things too. But overall, I thought our guys had a good feel for it and a good edge. And so, now we got to keep building on it, go on the road next week. And, but I think you're starting to see a rhythm with those guys up there in terms of rotation and the way that they're playing. It's starting to become a body of work, which is important.
Over to the right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, I just grabbed him. I said, what happened? And he said, I rolled out to the right, and he goes, nobody was on me. I said, okay. Anybody tell you to do that? He says, no. I said, okay, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
and just in general, I mean, I was a comfortable win, but did it feel clunky at times to you?
I think it has to do with the way that, the way that they kind of went into the game, playing a lot of too high coverage, saying, all right, you're either going to run it for 5 and we're good with that. Or you're gonna have to take the throws underneath, and then on offense, running it, huddling, running 30 seconds off the clock every play and snapping inside of 10 seconds. So, what happens with that is on offense, we end up with 59 total plays. They ended up with 56. So just not a lot of football there. And even at the end in that fourth quarter, we're just kind of running out the clock and moving on. But still, 49-10 is still a heck of a day. But in those type of games, you have to you're proud of the win. And it's hard to get style points when you're playing in that style of a game. And I think the one thing about our team is they're good with that. You talk to the guys on defense, they love it, but the guys on offense, it's not always the best, but they understand that winning's the most important thing. And if you start to get selfish or undisciplined, you can put yourself at risk in a hurry. And our guys know that it's important to make sure that we win, and we have to win different ways.
Over to the left, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you just kind of said it. Your offense, or at least your passing game's clunky, but you still score 49 points despite them playing you the right way. How do you stop you if you were on the other side? Is this the way to do it, or
it just depends? It depends on your personnel. It depends on what it is, and then we try to identify what's being done, and then we attack them in that area. If it's a too high structure, then we're gonna run the ball and control the clock and. That's okay. We're good with that. You can sit there and drop 8 every snap and say you're not going to throw the ball, or you can put a bunch of guys in the box and say you're not going to run the ball. That's why the balance is so important when you're playing. And this is a great example of that right here.
Pressing the issue, is it your understanding, without getting into detail too much, Greg thought that it was a called fake punt? Was that part of what brought him over? And
Oh, I don't know. I think he was just coming over to defend his player, just because he was kind of over there on our sideline, and it was a late hit, and there was a lot of emotion. I think he was just trying to get his player out of there, and things like that happen in football, and he was just defending his player.
Over to the right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
When you see a guy go 52 yards up in your grill like that, though, and the both of you are squaring off, I mean, when's the last time the juices flowed like
Clay,
that?
I'm not going to bite on that, so I'm sorry. I know.
It's confrontation, though.
Next question.
Over here to the right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
The forced fumble, and he tipped the ball too on the interception that Steele had. Just wondering what you thought of his play today, and maybe if you've seen him kind of building momentum to a game like this.
I think so. Yeah, I think he's playing well. I think he has built momentum. We'll watch the film and see how it was, but that was a huge play. Tips and overthrows are huge, and that was a tip that turned into an interception. And so, I think he's playing at a high level. We've got to watch the film and see, but I think he's been growing and building, and there's a chance he's playing his best football right now.
Got time for just a few more, folks. Over to the left, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, are you kind of having to start getting used to winning the games by running the football and playing good defense? Seems like that wasn't really your calling card last year, and now I think, by my count, this is your 3rd time doing that this year. Is it just a change for you, and how good does it feel to be able to win like that?
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, anytime you win games, it feels great, and it isn't about all the other stuff. You win, you move on, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to, and that's the way we look at it. And you can try to put a square peg in a round hole or vice versa, but if a team says they're going to take away this, then you have to do something else. I mean, that's just the way the game goes. And there's been times where we've played against teams that just say they're going to stop the run, and so we've thrown it, and you guys have seen that, and we have the ability to do that. And you can see today, their game plan. But that's when you talk about unselfishness, and certainly starts with the quarterback and understanding how to win the game. And And that's what makes great quarterbacks. I mean, I think you look in the NFL and I heard a great quarterback the other day say, "What's your favorite play in the red zone?" He said, "Run the ball." I mean, that's understanding what it takes to play winning football, and he understands that, and I think our whole team understands that.
And final question for Coach over here to the right, Austin Ward, Rivals 97.1 The Fan.
Ryan, tell me if I'm taking this idea too far, but like between last week with Jair's penalty, defending after the Mirko thing today, and spending all season talking about competitive stamina and toughness, does that apply to the coaching staff as well? And are you coaching with a different edge, do you think, than years past for your players?
I don't know. I know that this team is hungry. I know that we're playing with an edge. I think people feel that, and I wouldn't look too much into it. But at the same time, you have to bring it every single week, and that's everybody across the board for sure.
Great, Coach. Thank you very much.
No problem.
All right, folks, I'm going to bring CJ Stroud to the main podium for just about 5 quick minutes, and then I'll follow him up with Mayan Williams at this main podium, and I'm going to put some other players at the back there. Mayan, I want you to hold off. I want you at the main one. Zach, I'll take you. Steele, I'll take you. Julian was the first one up here. I'll take you. And I'll take the next player. Yep, to the back. Yep. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thanks. Thanks, Steele. Jerry. Okay. Hey, Toronto. All right, folks, in the back right now, we have Zach Harrison. We have Julian Fleming. We have Steele Chambers. Hey, guys, each of you take a table. Yeah, thank you. And Teron Vincent and also Javante Jean Baptiste. And then we'll open up questions here at the front for CJ Stroud. Who's got the microphone? We'll Louisa, right over here, please. Tim May, on 3.
Yeah. Monroe, CJ, describe this kind of day from your vantage point. Obviously, it didn't seem like a big throwing day all the way around, et cetera, with the breeze, et cetera. But obviously, you tried to make Marvin Harrison Jr. a hero a few times. Things didn't click. Pass interference and stuff, but how would you describe it from your vantage point? Because Ryan Day was saying great quarterbacks just want to get the win, want to get the touchdowns.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to give all glory and praise to God. Without him, I wouldn't be here. From my perspective, we won this year. I don't really care. I think their goal as a defense was not let our pass game win, and so we ran the ball. So early in the season, I said I was cool with that. It's not just about me. It's about getting wins and about other people eating. So when it's time for me to shine and do my thing, I feel like we'll do that. But I think their main goal was just to stop us on the passing game. And we still kind of had efficiency with that, but they were taking a lot of stuff away and too high coverage and things like that. But just got to be smart with the ball on the one play out of halftime. And then after that, I think we had a good game. That's definitely one of my best friends on the team. So it's just good. It's really inspiring to see him have a good game like that. All the stuff he's been through, all the stuff he's still going through now to this day, all the work he puts in, and just how focused he remains. So it's kind of cool to see his work pay off.
Over to the left, Cameron Teague Robinson, the Athletic.
CJ, with you mentioned obviously just want to win games. You mentioned they took away the pass today. You guys were able to run the ball. How important is a game like this today? Going down the road, knowing that, hey, if they want to try to take you and your receivers away, you can lean on Mayan and Travion.
Right. I definitely think that's something that we need just because, we are pretty dynamic on the outside. And then I think we do a great job on the inside protecting. And I definitely think that maybe other teams will try, but if we can run the ball that good and connect on some of the plays like we were doing in the past game, then it'll be a recipe for a win and success. So, I definitely think that we'll continue to get better and better. Just got to clean up some things on the offensive side of just pass pro and me just with my reads, seeing 1 high, 2 high, and things like that. But they did some things on film we didn't think they were going to do. So just got to be prepared for everything. But I think we'll continue to be great.
Over to the right here, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Since you brought it up, can you kind of walk us through that first play of the second half? And is that an example of where they did something that you weren't expecting? Or
Nah, they just went to plain old cover 2. The nickel carried. I thought I could fit it over his head and make a tight throw. Just got to be smarter. I mean, their safeties, when they run their cover two, they get so much depth that they kind of take away that and the whole shot, just because when he sees the ball, that's when he reacts. So I try to just fit it over the top. Could have made a better throw. Mecca ran a good route. The nickel carry, so I should have just checked it down in that cover two look because they just put a whole blanket over the offense. So I just got to be smarter right there. I know that coming into the season, I knew I was going to get a little bit of that. And, I mean, in the first half, we didn't do everything that we wanted to do. So maybe I just was trying to press a little bit too much. So I just got to be smarter. A little bit of both. I mean, I'm never going to put this team at risk, I feel, to try something that I don't think I can complete. I know for a fact I can complete that ball. I just got to be a little better. Just got to step into a little more or something. I'm not sure. So, I mean, we'll get back to the drawing board, continue to watch film and get better. I mean, I think that's definitely just a learning point. The season, like, everything isn't figured out in any team in America,
we got some
as you can tell around college
players
football.
back.
So,
Looks
I
like
mean,
Julian Fleming.
nothing wrong with the Buckeyes. We're going to continue to be great.
And we got two more questions for CJ over to the far left, Jeremy Birmingham.
So you got to have better technique than the man across from you to really be successful.
How did it feel when you got that first touchdown this year?
It was a great feeling. It was, I feel like it was kind of like not a long time coming, but it was just like anticipated for me. Like, I was hurt, and I was really good in camp. I was solid in camp. I was feeling good, feeling healthy, and then boom, I just had something little come and happen. So just it was hard sitting down for those first 2 weeks, but you still got to encourage your team. So just being able to be out there with them again, it was awesome.
So it was kind of like finally. Now you guys see what I am.
I mean, almost finally. But like I said, I would never want to go back and not have those injuries because really it built me to as a person. It really helped me grow as an individual and who I am right now. So.
Julian, what was CJ's demeanor like today? It was something that maybe we noticed. It wasn't a characteristic performance from him. And there's a couple of times that he looked a little bit disappointed in himself. But what was he like in the huddle, and what was he like on the sideline?
He still had the same energy. He's the leader of the team, so he really brings everybody's energy kind of bases off him. So he's really hard on himself, obviously, as a quarterback, and as a person, you're always going to be harder on yourself. So he's very critical of some of the things he does, but he never brings it into the huddle or lets it affect any of the team like that. And overall, I feel like he still had a really solid game. We just ran the ball a lot. We had a really balanced attack, so I feel like it was a solid team performance.
I'm making you the defensive coordinator of the other team for a minute here. How do you stop Ohio State's offense?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. I feel like we have so many weapons. It's really hard to key in on. You can't key in on one receiver because then there's going to be other receivers open. Or if you key in on the run game, the pass game is going to be open. Key on the pass game, the run game is going to be open with our running backs and our O-line. So I feel like that's a really hard question to answer right now.
Have you seen your coach that animated ever, Ryan Day?
What?
On the sideline, going with Chiano comes over. It's like MMA.
I didn't necessarily see the whole thing.
What did you see?
I just saw the end of the play, and that's kind of it. And everybody,
Did you hear anything? You didn't have to see it. You could maybe hear it.
Didn't hear nothing else.
You guys scored 49 points, and they played too high. Like I believe Notre Dame did the same thing.
Big too high.
We're going to head back to we got Fleming back, it looks like.
Have to wait and make the play when your number's called, and a lot it was going to the run game with two high safeties. They had nobody to help in the run game. So Mayan just getting loose and the O-line doing their thing, and I feel like it was a really good executional game from us up front. And then when the chances came and they came down for the run fits, we took our shots and we made plays on the perimeter. So I feel like I said, it was just a really balanced attack as an offense.
People are going to say, "Oh, what happened to Ohio State? Kind of a clunky game," as a couple of writers said. But are you aware that Minnesota went down today and Wisconsin went down again today? Michigan had a kind of a tough time, and A&M getting crushed. What does that say?
No, I wasn't really aware, but it kind of just shows you have to come in every Saturday ready to play, and you got to be better every single Saturday compared to the Saturday prior. So it's just something we have kind of.
Mayan Williams is at the podium, record-setting day. I think we're going to throw it
one. Mayan, when did you realize? Did you find out Travion wasn't playing? And two, when you found out, or I guess not even that. When did you feel like you were getting into a groove? I mean, it seemed like you were running through people and by people all game.
It was, what was it? I think like during the first drive, after the first touchdown I had, I was like, okay, like we got to get this ball rolling. I just told the offense, like, we just got to keep going. I think it was right before the game. Yeah.
Over here to the right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
When that happened, what did you like a jolt of energy knowing it was going to be you? And also the guys that you tied, Pete Johnson and Keith Byers, are legendary players. What does it mean to you to be in their company?
It wasn't like a joy of energy. I just told him, like, I looked him in his eyes, like I told Trey, like, I got you today. And I mean, it's a blessing just to be like just up there with them names. Like, those are legends here. So yeah, it's definitely a blessing.
Over right next door, Tim May
take
on 3, the Tim May podcast.
Yeah, there you go. What do you think about that, Mayan? Mayan, what's it like, the little handoff? All of a sudden you look up, just green in front of you. Take us through that play, because that really kind of put your day over the top.
Like when I broke and I just seen like green grass, I was just running. I was just telling myself, like, don't get caught. So I was just kept running.
How important is it to get one of those? Excuse me.
I mean, it's not really important. It's just like, it's a blessing. Just a blessing to break one. So yeah.
Over here to the right, Austin Ward, Rivals 97.1 The Fan.
Mine, I could look it up, but I think it might be easier
We're
to
gonna
just
throw
ask
it to
you,
Shiano real quick. He just got
this
to the
high
podium.
school 5-touchdown game more, or is this you do?
Me and my family, we have a lot of good friends down there. 9 players on our roster from the state of Florida, so we have family. So I'll start off with that. Tough game. Ohio State's got a good ball club. We didn't do enough things right to be at the end in the game. And that was our hope, is that we could get it to the fourth quarter and have it still be a game, we'd have a chance. So we didn't accomplish our goal, but I'm very proud of our players. They prepared very hard. They played very hard. Just not our time yet. The word "yet" is the operative word there, though. Just not our time yet. So with that, I'll open it up with questions.
Rick, what happened at the end with you and Ryan Day?
No, it's not Ryan Day and I think it's 2 coaches that protect their players. You know, my player was in a sea of Ohio State players, and it was closing fast, and I wanted to make sure of 2 things. Number one, I wanted to stop our team from coming across the field. That's how things get very ugly. And I wanted to make sure that our player got out of there safely. Both very competitive guys. I got the utmost respect for Ryan. We're good friends. We're good. There's no problem there between us.
Did you have to say anything to him at the end? The exchange looked like it was longer than normal as you walked up the field.
Yeah, we're good friends. You know, we both weren't going to let that get in the way. It was in the heat of the moment, competitive. And we both protected our players. That's what good coaches do.
Where you started Noah, he didn't take any snaps after the second quarter. Where is he? And Gavin didn't dress. Where is he as well?
Well, we were going to work Noah back in. Noah's not ready to do the full gamut right now. He's coming back from his injury, but we were going to give him a chance to start the game. We got him a little bit more, but not much. It's going to be a slow process for him to get back into it. We'll see how practice goes this week. Gavin obviously wasn't dressed, so he couldn't play tonight. So we'll just keep practicing and see where it goes, where it takes us. Yeah.
Greg, when you go up against an offense that's versatile and explosive as they are, what were you kind of trying to do defensively? What was kind of the plan going into it? And what do you feel like kept it from being executed as well as cool?
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that had me the most fearful was their passing game. So we were going to make sure that we were going to try to make sure that didn't get. That's how that game gets out of hand. And you've seen it happen to many people. They're just explosive in the throw game. They have a Heisman candidate quarterback. They have a deep stable of receivers. It's tough. I thought, with our depleted secondary today, Robert Longbeen was out. Shaquan Loyal was out. Desmond Igmanuson was out. Elijah Mack got his first start. So I thought, all in all, pretty good job against the pass. It's the run that, and again, you kind of have to kind of have to pick, right? If you're going to dedicate resources to stop one, you try to cover up the other. But they're the third-ranked team in the country for a reason. So I thought they played their guts out. We're just not yet. We're not ready yet. We will be. We'll be a day.
Longer game, is that a concern as a long-term injury?
We're going to have to wait and see. Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see.
Coach, you talked about your concern being Ohio State's pass game. You were relatively, compared to a lot of other opponents this season, successful at containing C.J. Stroud. So what did you do schematically, and especially given the injuries and situation you had in the defensive back?
Well, I think we got to him a little bit. When you watch getting ready for him, it literally looked like 7-on-7 sometimes. No one was touching it. So it's different playing quarterback when you're not touched. I thought the rush got to him at times. At times it didn't. That's a very good offensive line. And then I think some guys did, some good things in coverage. Got some penalties that, everyone's going to argue their side of it. But overall, I think the kids competed well. The big run, really, that's a dagger for us right there.
Any further questions?
You had your 7-0 lead for the onside kick.
All right. Just wanted to get a couple minutes of Greg Schiano there, just obviously to go over the altercation there with Ryan Day in the fourth quarter after hearing from both coaches. Sounds more like it was almost about getting the players getting players separated than it was even the punt or the play or anything like that. So both coaches kind of said, hey, just trying to get my guys out of that situation. So that's what the confrontation looks to be more about than anything that maybe happened on the field there with the punt. A lot of talk about, obviously, not CJ Stroud's best game by any stretch. In fact, I believe this was a career low in passing yards. What did you see, Devin, defensively that Rutgers was doing? And I guess how much of it was Rutgers and how much of it was maybe CJ just being a little off today?
I think there's a couple things you could talk about. One, you heard coaches and players talk about it in the post game. What Rutgers came into the game plan, they were going to attempt to take away, and I guess you could say for the most part did take away from Ohio State. They were going to make Ohio State commit to being a drive it down the field team. You're not going to hit the explosives and blow us out the water early. So that's number one. Number two, I don't know what the weather was down there, but I know during the game they kept talking about the wind being really inconsistent, changing directions, rolling around. I don't know how much that was affecting the timing, the ball, receivers having to make adjustments on the ball once it's in the air. And the third thing is, I think, even heard CJ talk about it in the post game, forcing passes. I know in the first interception coming out in the second half was, the obvious example. So I think y'all got to take all three factors into consideration when you're talking about what Rutgers was able to do successfully against Ohio State. And you heard CJ say it too, as well in the post game, that they threw some things at them they hadn't seen yet on film too. And it goes back to, like we talked about in the opening, Coach Schiano throwing the kitchen sink at Ohio State.
This is going to sound almost ridiculous, but I think there's something to discuss here. So last season, CJ Stroud only had one game that he threw for under 250 yards. I went back and looked. It was Tulsa, which is maybe the high point, or other than the Michigan game, is maybe the high point of the angst of the Ohio State fan base last year was that Tulsa game. Playing into the fourth quarter with those guys, that game was not nearly, that game was a lot closer than the final score was 40-21. The game was much closer than that. That was way too close for comfort. So only one time last year did he throw for under 250. And we talk about, how many times if he had thrown for 250 against Penn State or Nebraska or some of these other games, how many losses would they have had? If he hadn't thrown for 300, 350, 400 yards. And I looked this year and he's already got 2 games under 250. And while there may be some negatives to look at into why that is, they've won both those games. They won today by 40 points almost, despite his, it was like 150 some yards. They beat Notre Dame by 11 and he threw for under 250. How much of that is concern that a couple of these games have happened, or how much of that is, wow, look at how this team can now win with running game and defense?
Yes is the answer to the question. I think you got to look at each game as its own game to a certain respect. I mean, Notre Dame, I think Coach Day even said it this week in one of his press conferences that, hey, our big game plan week 1 was we're going to feed Jackson Smith. And then he goes out and like his first catch of the game. So you got to adjust on the fly, and then you got Fleming out as well. So you're down your top 2 guys right out the gate. So that's something had to be, taken into account for against Notre Dame. And then obviously, they even mentioned it today. Notre Dame came in with that game plan of, hey, we're not going to let you take the roof off. We're going to force you to run the ball. So that's the Notre Dame game. And I think today, too, you're seeing, especially after last week, hey, we're not going to let you blow our doors off early. We're going to make you have to. And Coach Schiano mentioned it. We want to try and hang around into the fourth quarter and, make you play 3-4 yards, dink and dunk, 5-yard, catch and throw, rally, tackle, make you snap the ball again. So to your second point, you're starting to see that run game. Why Coach Day went out and got Coach Fry from UCLA and hooked back up with him. That, hey, we need to be able to run the ball. We can't just be. I think you saw a lot of criticism this offseason of is Ryan Day just a 7-on-7 coach, and I think you're seeing the answer of that. No, we're going to go out and play. We're going to run the ball down your throat if that's what you want us to do. You're going to play too high. You're going to give us a light box. Sorry, this is going to be a long game for you too, and we'll still beat you.
I mean, look, there's no way they win the Notre Dame game last year on 220 passing yards from Stroud, and there's no way. I mean, okay, I'm not going to say they would have lost to Rutgers with 150 some yards from Stroud last year, but if CJ has 150 some yards against Rutgers last year, that's a game in the fourth quarter. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're exactly correct. And I think something to be said on this just hit me surprisingly here, but can you lean on the run game a little bit more when you have a defense that's going to hold a team to 14 points? I mean, last year they had to score, they had to go because we don't have to revisit that, but you got to put points on the board to win the past season. This year, you can run the ball 3 times, punt, and go play defense successfully. So I think you got to look at the bigger overall philosophy of the team now is the defense is getting stops and forcing teams to put points on the board. So you can rely more heavy on the run game than you could in previous year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, they're playing, obviously, if you look ahead here, they're gonna play Iowa, whose offense is just an embarrassment right now. They're gonna play a Michigan State team that coming up next week that is really struggling right now. Doesn't look like the team maybe a lot of people thought they might be this year. So I don't know how much we learn the next 3 weeks when you can throw the bye in there. I don't know how much we learn the next 3 weeks, but Penn State's maybe going to give them a little more balance in terms of having offense and defense, not being such a one-dimensional team. But I mean, is it, I guess, are you more concerned about maybe Stroud having a couple of these off games, or is that maybe overshadowed by the comfort of knowing that Ohio State doesn't need to win 45-42 every week?
I'm going to lean on I take comfort in knowing that they can go out and win a game 21-10. Then I am going to hit the panic button on anything. Obviously, I'd like to see, the coach in me wants to see CJ take the check down and not force it if he doesn't have to. I mean, that wasn't a situation where he needed to force the ball by any stretch of imagination. So take the check down and go play 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 5. That's a win. You can't complain about a profit. So I'd like to see that in the next couple of weeks. What I'd really like to see, I got an old saying that I heard from an old coaching buddy of mine is you got to squash a bug with a sledgehammer. And that's what you got to see the next couple of weeks. If Michigan State really is down, then you got to go up there and smash them. Don't let them hang around. As we're seeing already this year with all the upsets, even today, what was it, 3 or 4 teams, top 25 got knocked off today. So it's win in advance. You got to keep winning. And that's number one. Number 2 is, if they're supposed to be down, Michigan State's on a down year, or, Iowa doesn't have a good offense, then make sure that Michigan State's on a down year and Iowa doesn't have an offense, and go out there and do what you're supposed to do. That's really a challenge. Of if you think you're really a good football team, then you're going to be a good football team regardless of who your opponent is.
Yeah, I think both the teams are about to play are kind of at a crossroads of like, okay, if you can, to your point, if you can get on them early, instill a little doubt in both of these teams, you could blow them out of the stadium. But on the other hand, if a couple bounces go their way early, these are these are the types of games for a Michigan State or an Iowa that can completely turn their season around, save their season type of games. So
it wasn't that long ago. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say, what was it? 2017? Iowa just absolutely laid it on Ohio State. So it's not that long ago. And, I can't remember how good Iowa was that year, to be perfectly honest, but is this game, and it's at Iowa too.
It's okay. Yeah.
And I think it was at Iowa too, isn't it?
Yeah. That was at Iowa. Yeah. They'll be coming to the show.
They'll be at Ohio. Nonetheless, you still got to teach a little history lesson that, hey,
yep.
Iowa's year in, year out, a pretty solid football team. Obviously we talk offensive struggles this year, but they're going to go out and play tough defense and make you earn it. So like you were just saying, you got to jump on them early. And if, Ohio State really is a top tier, we're going to contend for national championships, then you need to be able to go out there and take on an Iowa, take on Michigan State and put it on them pretty good.
Yeah, I think the other thing, I think we've hit on a lot from today's game that was important to talk about, but I think the one thing we haven't really kind of dove into yet, how concerned are you right now, I guess, as you see the drive chart from today with the offense there, but how concerned, Devin, are you with the injuries piling up? Is this, I've kind of taken the glass half full on building depth and trade, made it the professional sports, comparison of getting a couple guys at the trade deadline, when these guys get healthy coming out of the bye or whatever. But where are you at on the continuum of this is great, building depth, making them better long term versus this is starting to get a little concerning for derailing a potential championship run?
I am. Yes. Again, I am. Yes, this is great. A lot of guys are getting reps, getting great, real life, or not real life, excuse me, but real live competitive playing experience. When the game's still contested, it's not just mop up time. So that's the glass half full. Glass half empty, though. Keep talking about the offense. Not getting going, maybe not hitting these big plays. Well, when you got a whole new receiving core every week, that continuity, the chemistry, you don't just get a chance to build it. And you'd like to see to get the full complement of wide receivers. We'll use them for an example, so that they can get that rhythm, get that feel, get that chemistry built back up again, especially as you hit the latter half of the season. If you were, again, like you just said, if you want to make a run at it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, none of this looks serious. None of these injuries look season ending. A lot of these guys look like, some of them look precautionary. Others are like, well, just, get to the bye week. I guess my only real concern would be maybe with the offense is it seems like not every week, but it seems frequently CJ's working with different targets, different backs, different receivers, whatever it may be. And just making sure that, if this offense gets fully healthy, let's say coming out of the bye, is that enough time between not even Michigan, but like Penn State? Is that going to be enough time to get things together in cohesion? Or, have these guys had so many reps together in practice over the past 2 years that maybe that doesn't matter?
I think you'd like to get everything going in the right direction with the full complement out there. Just like I said, just to get that chemistry going before you hit the home stretch there in the latter half of the season, for sure. I don't even guys like CJ and Smith and Jigma, going back to when they were true freshmen working the scout team together. They've got the chemistry going back to them, but you still like to see it real live before you have to go to the latter half of the season.
You're a big defensive guy. It's kind of one of those throwaway games. I think people don't, they expect the Ohio State defense to hold them, to a touchdown or less, 10 points or less or whatever. But I was actually pretty encouraged by the defense today. I'm just kind of curious what you thought defensively and how kind of maybe grade the defensive performance today.
I think the first thing is they only gave up one play over 20. I know Coach Knowles talks about the explosive holding them to 5 or less. So I think they only had one play over 20 where Burt got turned around in man coverage. So again, very encouraging. You saw Coach Knowles start to sprinkle in some different looks up front, going to more 3 down, 3 linebackers in there with Simon, Eichenberg, and Chambers in there all together instead of rotating Simon and Chambers in and out throughout the game. So he's obviously working on something there to get that package going for somebody. So I want to go back and take a look at that and see how that was fit. And that didn't seem to, as I was watching it live, I made the comment with Justin and Ross that the fits just weren't right in that look when they brought in the 3 true linebackers with the 3 down linemen. So I'm definitely want to go back and take a look at that. You saw, McAllister go out early. And then you saw rotating guys in at safety. You saw Proctor, Ransom rotating in and out. You saw Stokes come in at that nickel spot. Again, like I mentioned earlier, in real live, contested minutes and get some valuable reps there and play well, big picture. But that the 3-3 package, 3-3 look is going to be one I'm going to go back and take a look at and see how that was fitting up.
Now, you think that's maybe Iowa, or you think that's maybe Michigan State next week? They're preparing for maybe both.
Yes, I think yes is the answer. I think it's something. I think it's something that they like. They like the flexibility. I mean, you got to think Coach Knowles really. When I talk to anybody about Coach Knowles' defense, it really is his pre-snap is not what you're going to get post-snap. Contrast it with saying Iowa, hey, we're going to line up and this is what we're going to play. Coach Knowles is going to get to something totally different than when he gives you pre-snap. So having that, another off-the-ball guy that could potentially fit as the 4th D lineman to get to the look he wants to get to is what I'm guessing he wants to do with that 3-3 look by bringing Simon in that package.
It's almost sad to say this. We're almost halfway through the regular season at this point already. That seems kind of crazy. How do you think the defense has come together? Obviously, everyone had their own expectations, some probably more unrealistic than others in terms of how quickly Jim Knowles was going to turn this around. As you kind of look at the tackle numbers here from today, Steel Chambers, 11 tackles, Tommy Eichenberg, 9. Tommy's been, I think, incredible this season so far. Based on what your expectations were, Devin, coming into the season on how quickly Jim Knowles could get this turnaround, I mean, how would you grade him, I guess, so far through 5 games?
Through 5 games, it's come together a lot faster than I had anticipated. I mean, it's a total, you can't even call it a revamp from what they've been running the past couple of years. It's a brand new, no carryover from front to back new system that they are running. So I thought it was going to take a lot longer for them to get confident and playing fast. So, A-, I guess I was going to put a letter grade on it. There's still some things to work out, obviously. Always can get better on. I'm still looking at the secondary. Are they going to get tested eventually by quarterback play, pass game? But up front, they've been incredible. And, you heard Coach Johnson talk about preseason block destruction. I mean, for the past couple of years, Chase Young going back, he's been used to guys get their hand in the dirt, cock that foot back, and let's get after it, create negative plays, create pressure with the defensive line, get upfield, tackle the run on the way to the quarterback. So it was a total overhaul what they're doing up front. And this defensive line, starting with them, has been really, really good to start the year. I was really encouraged by what I saw against Wisconsin in particular. I mentioned on the board that Wisconsin's had a D1 defensive coordinator tell me not too long ago that all the teams he's ever coached against, Wisconsin is the one that just absolutely just pummels you up front. And you better play 12 defensive linemen because you're going to have 7 left by the time that game's over. And to see how well the defensive line played against Wisconsin's offensive line, I'm not talking skill. I'm not talking about, outside corner, wide. I'm talking about offensive line versus defensive line only. And see how well they played against them up front was really encouraging in terms of how far they've come in such a short period of time.
And I'll just throw out there real quick. We're going to throw it over to the other guys, to Tony and Tom, and the guys here in a second. But I thought it was encouraging to get the 4th and 1 stop. It was kind of late in the game. It was kind of guard. It wasn't like a key moment in the game, but I mean, it's just building confidence. I mean, there's almost no chance they get that stop last year.
That is a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up because not just getting the stop in general, but like you mentioned, the game situation. They're up 30 or whatever it was, up 40. So it very easily could have been one of those almost, I don't want to say throwaway downs, but all right, whatever. They got the first. But no, to see them I almost could say take pride in, hey, you're not getting this first down. We're getting off the field is huge. And it speaks to the culture that Coach Knowles and not just Coach Knowles, but the guys he brought in with him are creating in that in the defensive side of the ball.
Awesome stuff as always, Devin. Appreciate it. We're going to sign off here now and throw it to Tony and Tom. Sorry, everyone, but I think we're contractually obligated to do this. So let's take it away.
We can hear you, Mark. Mark, we can hear you, just so you know. As you're doing that, we've got you piped in here. Thank you for that incredible introduction. You've been watching too much of Tom and the insulting of mainly me, but you're also self-deprecating at times. You don't show it to the people or anybody else. I just assume you have to be because you should be. Anyway, hello everybody. Hello everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, don't put in the newspapers I'm mad. I got mad. This is the first Ohio State post-game press conference, visiting press conference that I can remember covering that was basically a drill tweet. Like, what a game. It was, this was basically a tale of two cities. It was a tale of two games. It was the most boring of games. It was the most interesting of games. The stuff that was, the stuff that is normally mundane, like the post-game coach's handshake, was suddenly like, oh my, what's going to happen here?
Which mic? Share mic. We will share this one until we get the other one figured out. No, it was very interesting. And then as the clock is going down to zero, everybody is running to the. Can you help him with that? The microphone. Try that now. How about now, Kevin? Better here? Better here.
Professionals. If I had to describe us in one word, it would be professionals.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
This is the first ever live take two that we've done. This is tremendous content.
We've got a lot of practice.
We have a lot of practice, yes. Boy, Tony, what can we say about this game that we haven't already said? It was you had a record-setting performance from Mayan Williams. You had long stretch. Sorry. You had a, not particularly interesting games for long stretches. You had an end of the first half that was like the last minute of a regular season basketball game coached by Tom Izzo. You had you had a fake punt up by a team up by 39 points. You had a coach running literally from one sideline all the way across to the other sideline. Two coaches who used to work together, yelling and pointing directly at each other. I had people saying, like, I don't think he was yelling at. I was like, no, I have a picture. And they're like 3 feet apart and there's no one in between them. So it's pretty clear who they're yelling at. There's a lot to talk about this game.
Well, that was the first question after the game of Ryan Day was about that. And I think that was the first question on the radio show where he said it was Jesse Mirko's call. There was no defense there, so he just ran. And Ryan Day, that was the first question he got in the post game. Tim May asked him, hey man, what's up with that fake punt? And Day was like, well, that was Jesse's read, and there was nobody there, and they rushed hard, and there was just nobody there to stop him, so he just kept running. And then when Mirko got to the sideline after he got, back on his feet, Day asked him, what did you do? What was that about? Did anybody tell you to do that? And Jesse Mirko explained to him what he saw, and was like, no, nobody told him to do that. And Ryan was like, we'll talk tomorrow. We will talk about this tomorrow. But Tom, this is what happens. You've got to be prepared for this as a head coach when you have an Australian on your team. These guys are loose cannons.
Well, I mean, I'm down on the field. I don't always have the best view of the whole situation, but my impression from where I was that Rutgers had maybe like a punt block on, and they had, they had a bunch of guys right up at the line, and they had a couple guys off to the side, and there was like no one on the right side. And so the automatic thing is, well, if you don't see anyone there, you just take off and run. And if Rutgers still cares enough to be doing a punt block, well, I mean, I think it would, frankly, Tony, I think it would be pretty disrespectful not to continue to try to play. I mean, if Rutgers doesn't want to play against Ohio State and have Ohio State try for the full 60 minutes, well, I'm sure the American Athletic Conference would welcome you, and I'm sure you would be more competitive there. You won't make as much TV money, but you're going to find a lot of similarities with a lot of the teams there, which, maybe there's a reason for that, Tony. I don't know. Who's to say?
Who's to say? But they did say, he was asked when Greg Schiano came over, was this like a challenge to your masculinity? I don't know if that was the exact question, but basically, what did you think of that? And they said he was just coming over to defend his player, which I think is what Greg Schiano said in his post game. And then they said that, they went to midfield, the post game handshake, and he just explained to him that, this was just not just that, things are fine. We're cool. I understand what you were saying. We were both just defending our players, and then cooler heads prevailed. And unfortunately, Tom, there were no fisticuffs. Not that anybody would encourage that, but again, you bring a team of New Jersey guys into your house, you better expect a fight, especially like if you try to take the football from them or do a fake punt or have, again, an Australian, because New Jersey people do not like Australians. I don't know if you're aware of this.
They have an Australian punter themselves.
Yeah, and they hate him.
Well, he's the best player on their team and has been
They're
for
jealous.
like,
It's
for
jealousy,
like 3
Tom.
years. Yeah, it's
The funny thing is, so a bunch of us got up, and to let you guys know, with like 8 to 5 minutes left, a lot of the media will get out and leave the press box and go down to the field. And so it was fourth down there, getting ready to punt. Ohio State was getting ready for that punt. So we're all like leaving the press box area where you can, see, and we're in the lunchroom area, media room area, and in the hallways. And then you hear the crowd explode. You're like, these guys just faked a punt, and you can't hear it, but you know exactly what happened. And then you hear the crowd like go, oh, and then there's like some boos, and you're like, what am I supposed to make of this? The crowd goes crazy, and then did they not make the first down? He's short on the fourth down attempt, and then of course we get to the TVs by the elevator, and we see it, and that's where I see Schiano doing this, pointing at Dave, pointing back at Schiano, and a great time was had by all.
Yeah, I mean, and the real fun thing is you could dub over just about anything there, and it would probably be pretty funny. Conversations about the 2017 Iowa game, conversations about the 2018 Purdue game, conversations about the Tennessee job. No, Kevin, it's not time to talk about the Tennessee job yet. No, it was just you never see that. You never. But have you ever seen a head coach of one team in the middle of the game sprint over to the opponent's sideline? And Greg Schiano, if you didn't watch the Greg Schiano press conference, we streamed it live earlier on our postgame show. But Schiano essentially said he was just trying to protect his player. He had, his guy was kind of on the side, in the sideline, and just kind of in a sea of Ohio State players. And Ohio State players were not real happy with him because he had just hit their Australian, and unlike Rutgers, Ohio State appears to like their Australian. So it was, and I get that. I mean, think back to the 2013 Ohio State-Michigan game where you had that on-field thing, and they had all the Michigan guys kind of surrounding Dontre Wilson, and you kind of had the same thing. Marcus Hall made his famous exit moments later. You kind of get it. I think the real question was, is he really ticked about what's happening right here? Is he really ticked about them running a fake punt? Like what? Because you could ascribe a couple different motives to him, and how that situation plays out and how that looks for him, and looking at it afterwards kind of depends pretty heavily on what motive you want to ascribe to him. Because if you want to say he's just ticked about the fake punt and how dare you, then that comes across as pretty disingenuous. We have a super chat. Kevin Newton, talk to me.
Kapler, be sure to talk to your loved one about 5-0 Kansas.
I mean, we can talk about 5-0 Kansas at some point. It is, boy, Lance Leipold. Just go ahead, do a Twitter search for my at Tom Moore 4 and Lance Leipold's name. You will find me begging Illinois to
Ohio
hire
State.
him. Yeah. He's not. I don't think he's an Ohio State type coach, but boy, if you are just a super fun site of a program, and you had an opportunity to hire him and you didn't do it, you're a moron. Your athletic department is run by a dumb, stupid idiot. If you had a chance to hire him and you hired Brett Bielema instead, and I say that after Brett Bielema just de-skinned Wisconsin. I mean, that, good Lord. I mean, I think the smartest thing what Nebraska could do is just drive a big truck with a dollar sign on the side of it to Lance Leipold's house and say, pretty please, just, like the HOCO sign, like, the kids invite each other to homecoming now. Thank God I'm not a high school kid now. Wouldn't have gone anyway. Just drive a truck with a big dollar sign on it to Lance Leipold's house and get down on one knee and beg him to take your job, because he will save you if you are smart enough to hire him and you can get him away. But Tony, we need to talk about potentially living in a world where 5-0 Kansas hosts College game day next week, because I think that's a real legitimate possibility.
Do they have Oklahoma? Who do they have?
Does it matter?
I think Nebraska, obviously we've talked, they should go after Lance Leipold. Go now while maybe you get Jalen Daniel in the transfer portal in the process. You can get the quarterback that is doing all of this as well. So yeah, fun job, good job by them. Entertaining style of football, and when you are a Cinderella like that, it's just, you're always rooting for them.
Oh, they get TCU next weekend.
There you go.
Speaking of teams that de-skinned people today, Oklahoma, how is that working out for you?
Yeah, not good. And TCU had what, like 28 points in the first quarter or something like that, 27?
It was 40-17, like before halftime.
Another super chat, Kevin?
Yeah, Mike Farino, can everyone send out prayers for Seven Banks, injured on LSU's opening kickoff and didn't look good? At least the reports are saying that he's moving and talking.
Okay. So, Seven Banks apparently injured he transferred to LSU this season. Apparently he's seriously injured or potentially seriously injured on an opening kickoff. I guess he's stretchered off. Okay.
He has movement in his
Movement in his extremities is a very positive sign.
Yeah, and when that's the good news, it's like, that's not a great injury, but you look for the positives in that. So yeah, definitely thoughts out to Seven Banks and his family as he finally getting on the field a little bit for LSU, I think. So
at least special teams.
Yeah.
Opening kickoff.
Yeah. So I don't think we've mentioned the final score. Ohio State wins 49-10.
That doesn't seem like a very important part of the story today.
I know. It really does. We haven't talked about Mayan Williams a little bit. Mayan Williams, 21 carries, 189 yards, 5 touchdowns, a long of 70, as everybody saw. Travion Henderson tweaked something in warmups, which is a weekly occurrence for this team. Not just Travion Henderson, but somebody every week. They're not on the availability report, but they wake up in the morning and the warmups are just too strenuous. It's so bizarre what is going on with these minor injuries. And granted, Ohio State is deep enough and the Big Ten is weak enough that you don't need to be full strength to win all of these games. But it's somebody new. It's more than just one person new every single week, where it's like, what? How does this happen? And I know on the Huddle message board, people were wondering about the turf, but I don't know that all of this is happening here. It's not just here. That's not just in the WAC inside where they have the same turf. I think it's just bizarre, is what I will say.
Yeah, and thanks to our producer who has been throwing up some game stats. We're going to get into some more granular discussion of the game itself in a little bit, but man, it is bizarre at this point, and it's to the point where you kind of want to do a study. And Ryan Day is big on doing studies on, he'll do a study on third down decisions, and he'll do a study on, I remember Jim Tressel doing a study on the wind inside the stadium, and so coaches will, you have 100 million people around who you can just point at and say, study this. Mm-hmm. And they'll go do it. It's crazy. It sounds awesome. Just having your own little army of people to just,
oh man, Kevin, go study something.
Kevin, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Get back to me on that right now.
1, 2, 3.
All right, we have a super chat.
Yes. Jason, how hard are the warm-ups?
I got to tell you, I don't think the warm-ups are any harder than they have been previously. There's not, other than the linemen, the defensive linemen, the offensive linemen will have the starters will kind of go up and hit a pad or something that one of the walk-ons or one of the second or third stringers is holding. But, they're not bringing guys to the ground in the warm-ups, any of that kind of stuff. I think you may want to do a study on, are they doing something differently with, muscle load on hamstrings or something? Are they doing something different with the nutrition, and they're not getting enough potassium in their diet.
Need
and they're
more
cramping, or
bananas.
they eat more bananas. The answer to everything, yes. It feels like it can't be a coincidence at this point. And I wouldn't even want to begin to speculate on the actual reason behind it, but it feels like this team, either there's an ancient Indian burial ground involved here somewhere. Maybe the new lacrosse stadium, I don't know, do a study on that perhaps. But other than that, I'm kind of at a loss, but it seems like it probably has to not just be a coincidence at this point.
Did say Ryan Day go on vacation in Hawaii and find a tiki idol and then bring it back to Columbus, and now
He's gonna miss the big surfing competition.
I don't know what that reference is.
Maybe that's what Greg Schiano was so mad about. The tiki idol. I was trying to read his lips, and I don't think he said tiki idol, but I didn't see the whole thing.
No, there's a K in there.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right.
There's a lot of words with K's in them, Tony.
I think you said a lucky guy, something like that. Lucky you. I think it was lucky you is what he was saying.
Yes.
Repeatedly.
Yes.
So yes, good job by lucky Ryan Day. This was such an odd game, as you mentioned. You look at CJ Stroud, 13 of 22 for 154 yards, 1 interception, 2 touchdowns, 2 carries, loss of 1 yard. It was I'm going to apologize for saying this. This is Cade McNamara.
Normally we have to apologize after we say things.
Yes,
This is new and exciting.
And there were some Cade McNamara throws in there. There's some late throws. There was that first throw in the third quarter, throwing it up into quadruple coverage. 4 defenders there.
Is that a lot of defenders?
It is
That
a lot
sounds
of
like
defenders.
a lot.
And like I remarked to Kevin and Tim May, like CJ was throwing that pass at halftime. Like it was already determined, I'm doing this. And Ryan Day did say like they wanted to attack coming out of the half. I don't think you want to attack there. If there's 4 guys down the middle, there's somebody else by math has to be open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does feel like that. And it wasn't that, that's on the drive chart there. That's the drive that started on the OSU 40, just first play, just boom. Boy, what a contrast of the first 2 drives of the third quarter for Ohio State. 1 play, interception, 1 play, 70 yards, touchdown. Like, boy, it was in fact the best of times and the worst of times. Yeah, and Greg Schiano was asked about, what did you do? Because this is as uneven as CJ Stroud has looked in a game. And he said a lot of it was just you turn on the film and he said it looked like 7-on-7. Like he's not getting any pressure. And if you can just stand back in the pocket and you can just pick people apart, and he said, that's easy. So he said they were really focused on getting pressure, making him uncomfortable. And he said, they didn't do it 100% of the time, but you could tell they were trying to be physical with Ohio State. And a lot of the time that resulted in, pass interference penalties or defensive holding penalties. And he said, your view of those is going to depend on which side, sideline you're on. But, I think that's one of those things where if you don't have the players to keep up with the other team, you just kind of clutch and grab and go, well, they can't call them all. And it did kind of feel like they tried to call them all at times. But, and the other thing is with Ohio State right now, at some point, all of those injuries, this is a deep team, but at some point this is not an unlimited scholarship situation. At some point you do start to run out of quality veteran players. And, we saw Kai Stokes out there. We saw Jair Brown out there in like the first quarter and Sonny Styles out there. And you're playing like 3 true freshmen pretty early in the game on defense. And, thank goodness for Ohio State that Mayan Williams had himself quite a day, because now you've only got 1 running back and you don't have, Emeka Ibuka was supposedly going to be a game time decision, and then he ended up playing. But, that was real dicey. You saw reports that maybe he wasn't going to play, that it was, maybe decided already that he wasn't going to play. That they are a very talented team. But if you have, an 8, all Big Ten first team all sitting on the sideline with, Travion Henderson and Jackson Smith and Jigba and, on and on and on. And half of the secondary is out. It's probably more than half the secondary is out. And was there an update on Tanner McAllister? Did he come back?
No update. No, he did not. They'll reevaluate him tomorrow and see. Ryan Day didn't know. But yeah, we talked before the game. Hey, who with Cam Martinez out, who backs up Tanner McAllister? And we were throwing a bunch of names out there, and we did finally throw Kai Stokes out there at the end. But yeah, he was like, saw Tanner McAllister go down, and I immediately looked to the sideline to see who's going to be coming in, and they pushed Kai Stokes like out onto the field, and then there was a timeout, and they could figure some stuff out. But that answered that one, and and he missed a tackle at one point in there on one where he had a one-on-one situation with a guy, and he got around him, and that's something that if that happens against Blake Corum or somebody like that, he's gone. Now, he did have a tackle for loss later on where he made a great play, but I guess it's good to get these guys in there now. And so if it happens against a Michigan or against a Penn State, they've had this experience to go on. But man, it's getting thin. But they always like, well, we hope to have Cam Brown practicing this week. We hope to have this and that, and they hope, and Denzel Burke is back, but this is another rough game for him. And he gave up some catches, and he's there. He's just not able to locate the ball right now.
Yeah, it just feels off with him this year, and I don't know why. He's the injury was a hand injury with him, so it's not like it was a leg injury that he can't keep up with guys or something like that. And it's been since the start of the season. This is not a new thing this week either. So yeah, that's just mystifying to me that I don't think he probably was quite as good as people sort of assumed last year as a true freshman starter that may have said, as much or more about some other guys who were on the defense last year than it did about him. But yeah, man, I'm a little, I think you have to be a little bit concerned about him, that, what's going on with him, because you can sort of write off, and I think we have sort of written off a few, hey, it was a bad game. Hey, it was a weird play. And he has had some weird plays. You had the one against Notre Dame where the receiver knocked it up in the air to himself and caught it on his back. It's okay. And he's had the one against Toledo where it was just kind of heaved down in the end zone, and he just, the guy made a play on it. You can write off some of the individual ones, but at some point you wonder, at what point does this become a pattern that is not just seven separate incidents of bad luck?
Well, it's a lot like all the injuries. It's like eventually this starts to mean something. It can't be coincidence. So, yeah, he changed his number from 5 to 10, hoping something would change, I assume, and it didn't. But you just got to get back to your technique and the coaching and the teaching and have it work itself out there. Steel Chambers, 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, an interception. Talked to him after the game, and he was pretty disappointed in that interception return because he was a former running back, and he said the quarterback tackled him, and he couldn't get away from the quarterback, and then he got to the sideline, and his teammates gave him heck for it. So unfortunate for him.
I'm noticing now on our Silver Bullets board there with a pretty picture of Tommy Eichenberg. 2 linebackers, 9 tackles. Tony, I was a week early. A man ahead of his time.
Yep.
But yeah, 8 solo tackles for Steel Chambers, a couple tackles for loss, the pick. I mean, as bad as the linebackers were last year, they have been a revelation this year. And some of that has to be just the scheme is designed to have them come clean in a way that they were not last year. But I mean, whether it's that or whether it's their position coach, the answer is, wow, Jim Knowles seems like he's doing a pretty good job, doesn't it?
Well, and Ryan Day talked about this in the postgame, as the guys on the stream know, that he chalks it up, as he has in the past, to the fact that this is their second year starting. So they know more, they've experienced more, they've seen more, and then also they are really comfortable in Jim Knowles' system, and having Jim Knowles, the defense coordinator, as your position coach as well, helps them learn it and know it and really understand it, because they're with the defensive coordinator so much. And so they're obviously, Steel Chambers says they're faster, they recognize stuff quicker, they're more comfortable trusting themselves. Like they trust everybody, and then they trust themselves, so you're able to move quicker. Tommy Eichenberg had 14 tackles last week. So on Wednesday, I asked Teron Vincent how many of those tackles are yours, because it's a defensive tackle that makes it happen. And he said, I think 8 of them, or no, he said 11 last week. And so then I asked him this week, with the 20 tackles total from Tommy Eichenberg, 9, Steel Chambers 11, how many of those were yours? And I believe he said 8 of the 20 were his. So no, so like 20 tackles the last 2 weeks for that guy. Pretty good.
He's having a career year.
Yes.
And someone else who's having a career year. Kevin Noon.
Yeah, super chat from Jordan Kapler. What is the likelihood that OSU is holding players out for very small things to keep them fresh for the last half and likely postseason?
What is the likelihood that Ohio State is holding these guys out, these injuries, so that they can have them the last half of the season? I think that's the real question that Ryan Day needs to be asked. And hey, we talked to him on Tuesday. If this was Michigan, if this was Penn State, how many of these guys would be playing? Except when you ask that, you are showing a lack of respect to Rutgers and Arkansas State and how difficult it is to win games, Tom. So I don't know how eager he would be to answer that stuff. But I do think if this was Michigan, these guys would be playing. And Ryan Day now also says, this stuff is out of his hands. It's the medical team. But Ryan Day is also allowed to side on the side of caution. Yes, they could go coach, but this is what they're dealing with. And could things get worse? Because if things can get worse, we'll hold them out. If they can't get worse, then let's play them. That sort of thing. But that you're going to win 49-10 if you want. And so I think there's definitely some truth to holding these guys out. But the fact that they're doing it more and more and more, is this the baseballization of football with the pitchers and these soft blank pitchers who can't go complete games anymore? They can't go 7 innings anymore. It's just you've limited the stamina of athletes today by playing baseball.
Load management.
Yeah.
It's not that they can't, Tony. It's that the third time through the order they become less effective. That's why they pull pitchers. It's not that they can't. It's not that they can't. It's that they, as a statistical matter, they get less effective the third time batters see them during a game.
They're soft.
Do we have the more you know graphic we can put up?
Soft
No.
mentally and soft physically?
Looks like
cowards as well.
Looks like no. Yes, and someone says Hardy Jen said that saw Cameron Babb dressed. He was listed as unavailable. He's been dressed and he's gone through warm-ups several times. I think that is one where they are being cautious with him. And I do feel like there are guys who they could play if they needed to. And I know, Tony, it is very important to respect all of your opponents, and it is especially true that you have to respect your opponents in your conference. And and Rutgers is people too. And we have to recognize that Rutgers has rights as a program in the Big Ten to be on television and earn money for the rest of the conference. And so they're people, and Rutgers gets to sleep on the couch, even though they're going to shed, and they are, but they're going to sleep on the couch anyway. And okay, that's fine. We can all pretend that Rutgers is people. That's fine. If this was Michigan, I think some of those guys are playing.
Yeah, I agree.
I think deep down in his heart on Tuesday, Ryan Day knows he probably is going to be able to beat Rutgers without these guys. And I know we like to pretend that this is, every week is okay. He also talks about games where the talent is equated. Is this a game where the talent is equated?
No.
Did we hear that this week at any point? I don't feel like we did. Okay, yeah. So yes, that is probably an indication that the talent was not in fact equated, and that you can probably be a little more cautious with guys. If you see guys sitting out against Penn State, okay, I think then we can have a conversation about it. But I right now I don't think that's something you.
Yeah, but we also saw guys sitting out against Wisconsin, which and is that film study? Is that? I mean, I think there's some film study there where it's these guys are not good.
Yeah. I think there may have been a little bit of film study there that, and El Suzabo brings up a point about at some point it does affect team chemistry when you're holding these guys out that much, and you have to play together at some point before you get into a real game.
Iowa.
I bet Iowa is the week. You have Michigan State, and we're going to listen to people pretend that Michigan State is people this week, but you're going to have Michigan State, and then you get a week off. Just spend 2 weeks getting everyone healthy, because the the blessing and the curse of playing in the Big Ten is you play a lot of games where you're favored by 30 or 40 points. And that means you got a little more leeway when you have a deep team like this. It's not the worst thing in the world to have Jair Brown and Kai Stokes and Sonny Styles and all these guys getting reps and getting opportunities to play, and that's going to pay off down the line. This time, June next year, we're going to be talking about how having these guys have reps is really going to pay off this fall. You're going to hear us talk about that a bunch next spring and next summer because it's happening right now.
Ryan Day still laments not having these opportunities in 2020, where the growth that the team has not made. He can attribute some of that to having 6 games, 8 games, no non-conference games to put these guys in there, and losing guys week to week by never knowing exactly who is going to be playing. And so that's stunted a lot of programs, including Ohio State. And it's how well you can make the most of it. And they're doing it as well as they can. And you're seeing the young guys out there now to prepare them for something. But yeah, I think you come back from the bye week, you ramp it up. That's when you start to surge, you get it going, and that way you're all cylinders once you get to the Michigan game here in Columbus.
All right, I have 2 pieces of college football news that you can't see because you can't see the TV. I want you to tell me which one of these is more remarkable. Number 1, Georgia is trailing Missouri 13-10 right now in the second quarter. Or 13-0. 13-0, yes. Second quarter, 8:53 left. Also, Penn State beat Northwestern 17-7. Northwestern forced 5 turnovers and got 0 points off of them. Northwestern football is a medical marvel and not in a good way.
Ryan Day said after this game, it's hard to have style points playing this style of team and this style of game. Style points against Northwestern in the terrible weather that Penn State had, that there is no style points when you're just wearing a shower curtain as a parka, a poncho.
Who would do that?
I don't know. Just a couple of random wild and crazy guys, I guess. Kevin, do we have any questions?
We do.
I don't need any. I just wanted to know.
Okay.
No. What do we got?
Wingman Ted, what was the crowd like after halftime?
Sparse. I took a picture at the end of the third quarter, and it was the South Stands was. There were people kind of in the middle of South Stands in Block O, maybe halfway, 2/3 up of that Block O section. The top on both sides, the middle on both sides was, maybe second half of spring game type of full. The rest of the stadium was not terrible, not quite that empty, but I think that it reflected a general recognition among the student body that there are better entertainment options in Columbus on a Saturday night than watching Rutgers football.
There's some, I don't want to say boring aspects to it, but you could understand why some people were bored by what they were seeing. Of course, there are plenty of people here who are spoiled by what they get to see, and then when you see something less than that, it's like I didn't pay $120 to watch CJ Stroud go 13 for 22. I'm going home. Like, I have enough of this. And then, of course, if anybody saw Tim May's tweet about my joke about the crowd, Tom.
I didn't. Some of us are working during the game and can't just be on Twitter all day. What did you say? You're very proud, so go ahead and tell us.
No, it's much. The setup is no good now. But basically, I said at the half, it's going to go from a homecoming crowd to a homegoing crowd.
I don't get it.
You know you get it. Kevin, anything else?
Yes, Jimmy Kramer. Is the Burke number change some sort of punishment?
Is the Burke number change some sort of punishment? No, I don't think so. Punishment for the number change punishment would be more like the 46 that Damon Arnett used to have to wear during camp and maybe even during a game or two. I think this is more of just wanting to change something and hoping the number change would be a sea change in how the season was going for him. But the football gods still know who he was because the Burke is still on the back of the jersey and they're able to see him. But it's going to take more than a number change. It's going to take a mentality change, a technique change, whatever. And it's up to Tim Walton, the quarterback's coach, Jim Knowles. Like, they've got to figure this out. And again, he's around the ball. He's just not finding it. And I think they need to get better at that.
And I think one thing that we need to think about here is you as an Ohio State fan at home are watching this and going, oh, these guys are terrible. They're so flawed. So many guys are hurt and oh, this is a disaster. Well, again, Missouri 13, Georgia 0, second quarter.
Yes.
And I would assume Georgia comes back and wins that game, but still
38-13.
Georgia fans right now are sitting at home and going, look at this is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama fans are sitting at home and going, how's Bryce Young's shoulder? Because it didn't look great. And I guess it was an AC joint strain, which I'm trying to rack my brain from my days in medical school.
Right.
I was never in medical school.
But you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express.
I drove past it one time. And I don't remember seeing anything on the sign outside about how long an AC joint sprain was. But, that's one of those things that I feel like you've heard about, and it's not, it's not season ending, but you're going to miss some time probably. And, things have not been ideal for Alabama at all times this year. I think I haven't seen anything that makes me think Ohio State is not one of the top 3 teams in the country right now. And you could make an argument that they're number 1 in the country, especially if Georgia continues to struggle here. Georgia didn't look great against Kent State last week. Alabama has kind of been sluggish at times. And if you don't have a Bryce Young, boy, that Tennessee game looks a little more interesting in a couple weeks if he's not in there.
Yeah. Well, you can justify one loss. It's then, yes, you may lose, but you better beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. It's that second loss that might be too much or not if there's only 3 great teams, and then you can move up that 2-loss Alabama team because, well, who else are you going to put in there? And then you've got two spots for that one team, that 2-loss Alabama team to be. But of course, Alabama will be 13-0, as we all know. But yeah, that Tennessee game is going to be there are no great teams. There are no perfect teams, is what I'll say. Every team has flaws. The receivers, the offensive line at Alabama, there are questions about the outside skill and overall talent, skill talent for Georgia. Concerns about when your best playmaker is your tight end. I always think that's a concern. Stetson Bennett won a national championship, so I'm okay with people leaving him alone for now. But we're going to put some points on the board against Missouri. I mean, yeah, sure. They've got a great defense, the SEC defense. It's legit. But, yeah, I still expect maybe not 38-13. I'll go 31-13. Kevin, anything else?
Yeah, Dave Horton. I'm getting concerned that Kyle McCord is not getting any meaningful reps. At some point, you have to let him run the full offense. He needs to develop some chemistry with the ones in case CJ goes down.
Yeah, a question about at some point Kyle McCord needs to be given the opportunity to play with the first team defense and help him get ready for next year. We talked about that before the game. I completely agree there, but you saw the way this first half ended, and it's like Kyle McCord's not going to be able to throw the ball. They're not the way things are going. And then that interception with CJ Stroud at the end of to start the third quarter, it's like, well, this is another one of these ugly Rutgers games where they don't get nearly as many guys in. And by the time they do get somebody in, it's too late to throw the ball. This time you can't run a fake punt and also be throwing the ball all over the place with your backup quarterbacks. We did see Devin Brown get in there, but yeah, the ideal situation is CJ Stroud, and maybe this is why they tried to go deep. You get a touchdown, you make it 35-7, and then CJ is done. And now you can run Kyle McCord out there with the starters. I agree they need to get that done, but I will also say CJ Stroud never threw a pass until last year.
Right. And yeah, I mean, 154 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I'm just looking at his lineup there right now. But it's just, yeah, I would be all in favor of them running Kyle McCord out there with the starters. I advocated for that pregame, as did you. Just run him out there with the ones for a drive or two, because he is one play away. Just like Bryce Young went down today, and they need a backup quarterback. Well, that's Kyle McCord's job if CJ Stroud goes down. And boy, if the Big Ten officiating crews are not going to protect a quarterback getting dragged down 5 yards out of bounds 20 minutes after Bryce Young got hurt, good Lord, people, what is it you'd say you do here? I mean, you get all these ticky-tack nonsense. The guy slid and someone, kind of bumped him slightly as they went past, and it's like, 15 yards, and then you get dragged down 5 yards. What? That should be a penalty on anyone
Yeah.
who gets tackled that far out of bounds, let alone a quarterback, let alone one of the marquee players in your league. What are you doing? And they weren't shy about throwing flags.
No.
So what are we doing here?
And you had the roughing not that long after that. Kevin.
Yeah.
Well, and people have noticed and commented that on the pass that was behind Emeka going toward the south stands, that it was a pretty clear targeting there where he took helmet to helmet contact, and they didn't even. I mean, there was no buzz down, no nothing.
It feels like it's odd with the replay has been really off this year, and I don't know if this is another situation where they're understaffed. You know, so many companies and outlets are understaffed now. You run to a fast food place and they're not even open because they don't have any workers. Maybe there's just. Is there anybody in the replay room? Have you checked? No, you're on the field. Maybe I will check next week. Like, knock. Anybody in here?
Speaking of no one being home, super chat from Greg. It was cool meeting you guys. Sorry I was nervous. They said he's never meet your heroes. I think my advice to you would be to get better heroes. I spent a lot of time with Tony. It's like, I mean, this guy's gonna be sleeping on a cot next week. You think he's a hero? Come on. And I say that as if I know the answer to who won bold predictions, and I don't know the answer. I know I got one.
Well, that might be plenty actually, Tom. As I think about it, but we're not here to talk about the past or COTS or anything like that. But yeah, it was great meeting you today. Meeting Steve Buckholtz as well. So that's always fun. Anytime you see Tom, please wave him down, say hi, tell him how much you love me and Kevin. Rub his head,
and
kick him in the gut.
I saw several people who were up in the stands and yelled down and stop and take a picture of you. No problem. I'm happy to stop and talk if I'm not running from one end of the field to the other at the end of a quarter or something like that. So yeah, by all means, like stop us and I can assure you, we know we're not that important. So yes, feel free to talk to us. Not Kevin though. Kevin's too good for you.
Right. Do not make eye contact with Kevin.
Let me rephrase that. Kevin thinks he's too good for you. Okay.
Kevin is kind of the way he sees himself is much different than the way everybody else sees him. I don't know if you know that, Tom.
So important update on Georgia. They have scored 3 points, 13-3. Missouri, 6:36 to go before halftime. Boy, if Missouri comes in, this feels like if you tell me the score with 8 minutes left in the third quarter, I will tell you how this game goes. Because it feels like Missouri, if they score, if Missouri screws around here and doesn't do anything with the ball, and Georgia gets more points and then scores in the first part of the third quarter, they're gonna, this is gonna end up 31-13.
Well, it's headed that way. 30 with the 3 points there. I don't foresee Missouri scoring, but like you saw Arkansas make a raring comeback today and then still get blown out by, I don't know, like 17, 19 points, something like that. Kevin, any other questions that you'd like to?
Sage Ohio says, do away with divisions and Rutgers may fare better.
Do away with divisions. Sage Ohio says, do away with divisions and Rutgers may fare better. Tom, I completely agree.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anyone who would benefit more from the end of divisions than the Rutgers and Marylands and Indianas of the world, where you get Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State off your schedule on at least a rotating basis. There's no one in the Big Ten West that scares you the way that at least the top three in the Big Ten East will scare you kind of consistently. And, you're adding in USC and UCLA to that. But, I mean, how many times has UCLA been better than Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State in the last 10 years? I mean, like, occasionally better than one kind of thing, but I don't know that, it's been super consistent.
Well, just put yourself in Greg Schiano's shoes, and you have to face Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State every single year. And you look at, like, he probably looks at Scott Frost and be like, how do you get fired playing in the Big Ten West when, like, you can't win in the West? You can't, like, this is the easiest road that anybody has, and you can't even do anything with it. And you look at, like we thought Minnesota was the Big Ten West team today, and then they lose to Purdue, and then it's like,
did they lose?
Yeah.
Oh.
So is Purdue the best team? No, it's probably Illinois. Illinois in the Big Ten championship game.
Can you imagine covering a Big Ten championship game with Bert? First of all, he'll be out at I was going to say the steak place with the cocktails.
St. Elmo's.
St. Elmo's. He'll be out at St. Elmo's with us. Jordan
St.
Kapler, super
Elmo.
chat, $2. 3 words. SEC. 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 We got to talk a little bit about the wide receiver play. 'Cause we do need to do our shot of the game.
Oh.
And so let's talk a little about that wide receiver play. You mentioned Emeka Egbuka, 4 catches, 70 yards. You know, it was that feels like a quiet day for him at this point.
It is.
Julian Fleming, what does Julian Fleming do? He just scores a touchdown a week now. That's just what Julian Fleming does now. 4 plays, 4 catches, 51 yards, 1 touchdown. He and Egbuka both had a decent number of yak. I mean, 28 of his 51 yards after the catch, 37 of Egbuka's 70 after the catch. And then the rest of it, 3 catches, 18 yards from Marvin Harrison.
They were forcing it into him, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, well, and Marvin Harrison had the ball where he stepped out apparently on the back line of the end zone. That is, I was right there. And that was the first time this season that I've, the way you shoot is you're looking through the camera, and so you're on the quarterback, and then you see the quarterback throw, and the ball starts getting bigger, and you pop the camera lens out a little bit, and I found the receiver who's in the front of the end zone, and it was like, that's not going to him. That means there's someone real close, and it's like being in the water, and there's like a shadow under the water, like, uh-oh, how close is this going to be? And he fell right at my feet, and was so close that I have a tremendous picture, but it was too close for the camera to focus, so that was very sad. But he was sitting. I have a great picture of him sitting on the ground and looking sort of disapprovingly at the call that he had stepped out of bounds. He didn't like that, but
that was a Jackson Smith and Jigba 2020 against Nebraska catch.
Yep. Yeah. That was a really good catch. And I have not had the opportunity to go back and watch it. But
I have not. Didn't see any replays of it, but it sure looked like he had gotten back in. Did we do the shot before we do the?
We have not done the shot of the game. We'll do our shot of the game before we get to Sue's super chat. Yeah, there it is. That is Julian Fleming hauling in the pass, right, just hitting his fingertips right there, right at the start of the third quarter. He has just, you feel so good for him because it's been such a long and arduous road. The irony of everyone on the team being hurt right now, and Julian Fleming, who hasn't been able to stay healthy, is finally staying healthy and making the most of the opportunities he's getting because everyone else is hurt. You have to feel good for him. There he is running it in with a couple of Rutgers defenders behind him. He's making plays. He's making his presence felt. And we've talked for so many years about the depth that Brian Hartline is bringing in terms of these wide receiver classes. This is when it's paying off. This is.
Yeah, no, he is a legitimate playmaker for them now, and he's not just a guy who will catch it and get tackled. They can go downfield. They've tried some quick screens with him. It's good to see, and he is somebody that is now heavily involved in the offense.
All right, so Sue would like Thomas do his SEC voice and update the Georgia game. Do you do impressions? I'm not a trained dog. I don't perform on.
Just do it.
Well, Tony, Missouri just kicked another field goal. They're now up 16-3. Tony, I'm sure when you're playing the number 1 team in the country and you can just keep kicking field goals, I sure do bet this is going to work out great for them. Touchdowns, there for the pores. I want to kick me some more field goals.
Sorry, folks, park's closed.
Sorry, folks. Enzo's closed. Who's up front? Should have told you.
I just hope they don't think like 13 points is more than 14.
And the irony is, people from Missouri don't sound anything like that.
Missouri people have a weird accent. Some of them have very weird accent. Arkansas too. This is a digression. Like in grade school, our guidance counselor would go around to the grade schools in the county because small schools. She was from Arkansas. Weirdest accent ever. Where I was always like, what country are you from? Like, Where really are you from?
Are you from Tyson or are you from Walmart? Those are the only two parts of Arkansas that I'm aware of.
She's from. I'm from Arkansas. I don't even know the accent to hear it now. I'd be like, where is that? Is it like West Germany? Back then there was a West.
Yes, I also am old. Yes, I did on Friday morning a radio hit in Tony's neck of the woods with Archibald, with James up in Archibald. Ickey's Buckeye Breakfast, a long running Northwest Ohio radio tradition. We've all, I think Kevin's done that at some points in the past, and Alex, and I did it this week. And they called you the pride of Patrick Henry High School, and which is up in that neck of the woods. And I thought, there's got to be something else, right? I mean, really, like it's
I hear nothing but jealousy.
How small is that school district is my question, and how new is that school district?
No, it's not new. It's 40, 50 years old at this point. But like my graduating class was
3. Were you the valedictorian?
No, I was not the valedictorian.
Were you the salutatorian?
No,
also no.
Whatever the third one, I was not that either. No, my graduating class was like in the 80s. Not it was like number of 80s, not 1980s.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
That would have been me. That would have been Kevin. Yes, I went to a small school. It doesn't show.
Yeah, very worldly.
Sorry to keep you awake, Kevin. Anything else over there?
Yeah. Hardy Jen's underappreciated dud of the day, voting Penn State.
Well, Hardy Jen's voting Penn State is the underappreciated dud of the day. Now, I didn't get a chance to watch a second of that game. I know the weather was going to potentially be an issue. Was that a weather impacted game?
Yeah, I heard Doug LeMaurice was talking above me and said or Bill Landis, somebody said there were like 7 turnovers in the first 20 minutes of that game or so.
Is that a lot? I don't watch a lot of football.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot for Sean Clifford. And it's a lot for whoever Northwestern is throwing out there at quarterback this year. And
yeah, I mean, assuming the weather was in fact like remnants of hurricane, you kind of just have to write those games off. Because I mean, you go back. There was a Notre Dame Clemson game like 6-7 years ago. There was a Notre Dame North Carolina State game 6-7 years ago where they were played in the remnants of hurricanes, and it just rains and rains and rains and rains and rains. And there is a point where you think like I cannot physically get any more wet. I have reached the point of saturation. I can and you can't get dry. Your hands get cold and pruny, and you can't. I mean, and so no one can catch, no one can throw, no one can hold on to the football. It just turns into a slog. And those games are kind of fun in the sickos college football way, but they are also generally not super reflective of the program quality on the whole. Except for Northwestern, who's garbage in any way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the 2017 senior day here.
Oh yeah,
just rained the entire time.
Yeah, well that game was fine. That game was fine in the first half, and then in the second half, that was the one where Urban Meyer, if you don't remember that, the 2017. First of all, that was the game where Tony got the funniest video in the history of the internet of a woman trying to climb out of the stands and fall
flat on her back. She was so hammered.
She didn't feel it that day.
No.
But yeah, that was a game where Ohio State got out to a big lead and then just turned the ball over a couple times, and Urban Meyer got ticked off and put guys back in after they had like untaped their ankles and unbuckled their shoulder pads, and it was like, what are you doing? That is as rainy a game as I can ever remember. We were only down there on the field for the last 8 minutes or so because I wasn't shooting photos at that point. But holy Moses, that was as
I stayed in the tunnel as long as I could.
Yeah, that was as soaking wet as you could possibly be. We are. Do we have our Heisman update yet? Is that something that we have?
I think he was working on AP top 20.
Okay. All right. So we'll get that. All right. So we'll
count on it.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll get to that.
Nearing the deceleration point.
Yep, that's fine. To me, Rutgers finishes with 80 yards passing, 107 yards rushing, 3 yards per carry. Is there anything about the Ohio State defense that you come away other than health? Is there anything that is a concern to you coming out of this game?
No, because there was nothing that Rutgers could do to threaten. And I think the reason they ran for 107 yards, which you look at it, it's like that's a small number, but you've got to look at it relative. Like it would be bad for Michigan, but it's good for Rutgers, that sort of thing. And it's like, well, gosh, why did they have so much success? And it's like, well, it's good for Rutgers, and it's not really even good for Rutgers because they're averaging 180 yards coming, I think, on the ground coming into this game. So held well under their average. And you're just looking like, well, but they shouldn't do anything. It's like, no, they can't. You can't you can't predict shutouts, or you shouldn't predict shutouts because we saw what happened, how quickly that went away, and this one just stuff happens. And Samuel Brown, the running back, 15 for 79, like nothing long of 11 yards. I think that's the key. Longest carry of the game was 11 yards. Longest reception was 26 yards. There was just nothing that for the second week in a row other than Braylon Allen. And did you see what Wisconsin rushed for? I think they rushed for like 2 yards today.
Is that good?
It is terrible.
Is that a lot?
And that's not even a yard per carry, which would be terrible. That's yard per carries, which is terrible.
I was just looking back at when Rutgers rushed for 11 yards because I think it was very close to the end of the first half because I had picked Rutgers to not have a first half rush of 10 yards or more, and their long rush was 11, and it happened very late in the half, and I got extremely annoyed on the field. I'm sure people in the field are like, why does he –
look at that Homer photographer.
Why does he care about some 11-yard run? Anyway.
Get those guys out of there.
Georgia in Missouri territory and driving. Sure, it's going to be fine. I'm sure they've kicked enough field goals that they'll be fine. Keep watching. It's really exciting watching the Google score update.
They're on the side like, how many field goals we need? I don't get the calculator. Kevin, anything else that we have waiting for us?
We've kind of touched on a lot of these.
Okay.
Here's one. Hardy Jens, any truth to the rumor that Brian Ferentz said Ryan Day was born on third base?
Oh, that is there. Hardy Jens asks, is there any truth that Brian Ferentz, offensive coordinator and now quarterbacks coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes, said that
offensive coordinator
and said that Ryan Day was born on third base? That is a great question. I don't know if there is any truth to that, but if somebody would know, although Brian Ferentz. Born on first base?
He's not that close. He's not that close to scoring.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't even know he's born on the on deck circle because that's.
Does that make him born in the hole?
No, he's born on the bullpen coach, the bullpen catcher.
There are times when I'm glad Kevin is not mic'd. This is one of those times.
Well, I mean, it's still a small room. Everybody can hear him if they listen. It's like you play this episode backwards. You're just going to hear Kevin with all of the snarky remarks. Zach Harrison, Tom. Had a sack, had a forced fumble, had the pass batted to Steel Chambers for the interception. This guy has not put up a ton of stats, but whenever we talk to him, always in a good mood, always happy to be doing what he's doing, and is an example of exactly what you want from your defense, especially your defensive line. You're not going to put up a bunch of stats, especially now the way that they are coaching that defensive line to just muddy things up and gum it up so that the linebackers can be free. But always just a selfless guy. And then I still go back to a few weeks ago when it was him and JT Tuimoloau at the same interview table, which just shows you, like we've talked in the past, when the guys come out and they, like the receivers would always come out and just sit like 4 or 5 wide because they're so close. And then you see Zach Harrison and JT Tuimoloau, guys who rotate with each other, guys who keep each other off the field, basically sitting next to each other, answering each other's questions, best of friends. That's exactly what you want to see from your defense. They're selfless and relentless.
And I think that's sort of a function of the culture that Larry Johnson has built, where the expectation is that you rotate. The expectation is not, you can point to Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa and Chase Young, and these guys weren't playing 70 snaps a game. Nick Bosa in his last season was playing 30 snaps a game, something like that. And he's made something of himself on the professional ranks. And that's just the culture. And so the younger guys who were behind those guys saw, hey, Jonathan Cooper saw that this is what Nick Bosa did. And then when Jonathan Cooper was the veteran, then Zach Harrison saw that this is what they did. And then when Zach Harrison was the veteran, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer saw what he did. And guess what? Guess what Caden Curry is learning right now? Guess what Kenyatta Jackson's learning right now? This is what you do. This is the culture of the room. And that's a good thing. That's a healthy thing because it keeps these guys fresher. You see the benefits of it. And I think, those guys, as long as they're having success and you're seeing the benefits of it, you're seeing the fruits of doing it that way, that makes it a much easier sell for those guys.
Caden Curry learned today that thought he learned that you can hit the quarterback late. Found out that you can't. Although I did not get to see a replay. I heard it was a very soft. Yeah. Are we winding down now? What are we wrapping it up? Okay. That's okay. We'll finish. I had another hour and a half to go on this game, but people want to go home. People want to go watch Pac-12 football. But just overall, we wanted to see more young guys, but then it's like, this is what happens with Rutgers every year. It's gummy, it's ugly, it is what it is. And yet here you are, you still put up 49 points, throwing for 150 yards because now you are a balanced offense and you can run the ball. And running the ball against Rutgers, whatever you want to say about it, but still run for 250 and control the ball. And it's something where they can go to whatever you want. If you're going to take something away, that's fine. We're okay with that. We'll just do whatever we can to take advantage of whatever you're giving us. And they did that in this one. Tom, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
We've mostly covered it. This just very much felt like an Ohio State Rutgers game. Like they all just kind of feel about the same, where you come in and go, they're going to win by a bunch, and they win by a bunch, and then everyone walks out of the stadium going, that was okay. But I mean, it was kind of a little closer or more annoying than you thought it was going to be. And I know Greg Schiano probably did not make himself a lot of friends in the city of Columbus tonight, but he played that game to win the game. And we have seen so many coaches come in here and, you're a massive underdog and you're punting on 4th and 1 at your own 43, like Paul Chris last week, or I think Butch Jones and Arkansas State punted on a 4th and, 4th and not that long in plus territory. And I think Jason Candle may have done that. And Greg Schiano gets a break with the muff punt from Emeka Ibuka. They cash it in. They score a touchdown. And what does he do? Onside kick. Didn't work. But you know what? At least he tried. At least you're trying to win the game and you're not just going, well, what if we, kept it within the spread? That would look pretty respectable. Like, you are paid to coach to win the game. Coach to win the game. And Schiano has for years coach to win the game. He has, for whatever you want to say about his time as an Ohio State defensive coordinator, he is a heck of a head football coach, specifically at Rutgers, where no one else has been able to do this. You look at them and it's like, they're still building. They're not there yet, but you can tell like that is a team that is just going to make someone's life miserable. They're going to, Nebraska, they've got Nebraska coming up. They've got Indiana coming up. They've got Maryland at the end of the season. They are just going to make someone just have a really bad day at some point. And you can sort of see it coming, and they're not there yet, but you can see the progress with this program.
You say Greg Schiano isn't coaching against the line, except Tom, the line was 39.5 and Rutgers lost by 39. So I'd say that's exactly what he did.
Well, I think he was coaching to my prediction, which was 52-10. And
anyway,
he was mad that they faked the punt because he's like, listen, just get the ball down in a field goal range, kick a field goal. I mean, you want to, that's what's supposed to happen. Ryan Day didn't listen. And frankly, I side with Greg Schiano here.
Well, at least now we have a title for the show. Ryan Day didn't listen. So that's fantastic. That will do it for us and for this entire stream. Thank you all for joining us. Whenever you joined us, if you've been here the entire time, that is awesome. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for the comments, the questions, the super chats. Thank you for the thumbs up on the videos. And the next time we see you will be in the postgame. The next time in the postgame will be with Michigan State next week. So we are looking forward to that. Figure out how we do it when we get there. Don't exactly know, but we're looking forward to learning on the fly, on the road.
World Star.
It's going to be fun. So thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you all later.